Welcome to Castle Paint. My name is Ian and today we'll be painting a lad who has undergone one too many surgeries. I've recently started a new game, Conquest, Last Argument of Kings, and my chosen army for that game is the steampunk Greek themed city-states. In their forces, one of the character units stood out to me, the Eidolon, a four-armed flesh golem combined with technology that a Greek philosopher type can remotely control from the safety of their column scolia building. For this guy, I'm going to be doing my army painting method, meaning we want to get them done fast, but good enough that I can be proud of the paint job. Light sources are the key to my process here. I'm going to use a unified shadow color across the whole model, and so the whole army. I'm going to also be using a strong difference in light to cheat my way to completion. Or more simply put, only paint the bits touched by the light. You can see I sprayed the miniature black, and now I take the airbrush and spray the entire mini with Vallejo model color royal purple. If I miss any bits, it will just be the black left there and show up as a shadow color. With this beast all purple, I start with one of our main sections, the white armor. I was watching some other videos in preparation for making this army, and the on-tabletop guys mentioned using a ceramic armor idea to lean into the fact that these Greeks have some decent technology. So with that in mind, I went with a white porcelain theme for the armor of these minis. My white recipe is pretty mature at this point. I start with Vallejo model color medium sea grey, follow that up with a mix of that color with some Vallejo model color white grey, then finally use straight white grey. Later on I'll add some edge highlights, but for now I airbrush the aforementioned colours on. I'm doing this with an airbrush in order to test how fast I can be, and how controlled. The white and the purple is the key to this scheme, and so doing this with an airbrush is supposed to add speed. The biggest issue here is overspray, but at least I can clean up with the purple using a brush, and it has no issue covering over the white. The last messy bit is the base, which I dry brush with some Vallejo game color jarred brown. After a bit of purple cleanup, I pull out the brush and start on the metallics. While I do the metallics, let's learn a bit about this deeply troubled warrior. Before we can learn about this guy, we need to hear about his smaller cousins, the Inquisitors. These lovely folks. Looming almost twice the height of a man, these lumbering monstrosities bear little resemblance to the men they once were. Now little more than empty vessels the Scolae can unleash at will, Inquisitors are the red right hand of this shadowy consort. Now a twisted amalgam of flesh and steel, the sole purpose is to embody the wrath and will of the shadow consort on the battlefield and beyond. Piston-driven limbs cleave through flesh and steel with alarming ease, their limbs powered by the traces of Philosian that courses through their veins, even as it burns their stunted lives short. That is a nasty way to go. With the metallics looking shiny and only painted on where the light would hit them, let's move on to some more base coating. For the skin, I mix it at Baneblade Brown, the colour I use for all the skin of my other city-states miniatures, and mix it with some Vallejo game colour Gory Red. I'm doing this as I want to give the skin a raw and damaged feel. Then we do a few details on the base. Vallejo game colour Charred Brown for our sticks and branches, Vallejo model colour Dark Blue Grey for the rocks, and some Vallejo model colour Deep Green for the leaves. It really makes these leaves pop out on the base. I should probably add a few more. With all the base tones applied, I now start building up the contrast and get those mid-tones popping. I'm going to do the skin next. I take the base I made before and add slightly more and more Citadel Kislev flesh after each layer. While I layer these on, again thinking about the light source, let's hear some more details on our Inquisitor lord. The Eidolon are everything that the Inquisitors are not. Unlike those twisted, crude vessels, an Eidolon represents the pinnacle of the Scolae's technique. With its body enhanced in every way imaginable, its flesh reinforced to handle the Philosian bonded blood that has been decanted into it, its limbs annealed with the strongest and lightest alloys the city-states can manufacture, and its lungs enhanced to power the blistering furnace that is its metabolism. Even so, all these changes pale to the masterpiece that is its mind. A blank slate, with not 1 ounce of will or thought of its own, whose autonomic functions are perfectly preserved, the perfect host for the Scolae to download itself into and execute its will. Let's hope this guy represents himself on the battlefield as befitting such a cool backstory. With the skin done, we move on to some cloth. First to do the non-purple cloth, For this I want to make a beige bone colour. To start this, I take Citadel Baneberg Brown and add it to the sleeves and the details on the purple cloak. I then add Citadel Screaming Skull to that base tone and layer on again. I then keep adding until the paint is just pure Screaming Skull. It's hard to do much on these super small sections, but as long as they match the colour I want, it's good enough. With the bone colour done, I do the purple cloth. This is already based from our first layers with the airbrush, so now I want to pump some contrast. To do this, I take the base Vallejo model colour Royal Purple and mix in some Vallejo model colour Ice Yellow. Here I want to be subtle and not go too bright too fast. As I paint this on, I'm essentially doing big edge highlights, and then after adding more Ice Yellow, I do slightly smaller highlights. I don't want this to take ages, as I have to do this over a whole army. This means I'm only painting the areas that really need it, and not being super careful with the highlighting. If it's a bit scratchy, then that just adds texture. With the cloth done, I return to some of our earlier base tones. The white gets an edge highlight with Vallejo model colour white ink, the brightest white I have. Any flat parts of the white get very thin, scratchy lines, and any edges that will be hit with the light get highlighted. Then I highlight the metals. For the silver metal, I highlight with Vallejo metal colour aluminium, and for the bronzish sections, I add that same aluminium with the base Vallejo game colour, Tinny Tin. Fantastic name, Vallejo. And then paint that mix over those sections. For the metallics, just like the white, I only do these highlights from the front and the top, leaving the rest in shadow. For any flat bits, I do scratches with as thin lines as I can manage. This is most of the real painting done. Next I want to add some depth. To start the process, I take some watered down Citadel Agrax Earthshade and apply it all over the base. Once that is dry, I then airbrush the whole mini with gloss varnish. This is to provide a better surface finish for the next steps. As always, it's about capillary action with washes. The next step is now a staple of my army painting processes, an oil wash. For most of the army I only use blue-black wash, but for this guy he is a twisted flesh monstrosity, and so I wanted to add more red into the skin. I mix Absalom faded blue and smoke together for my blue wash, then I mix red brick and smoke for the reddish wash. I apply the red to the skin and the blue wash everywhere else. If it mixes in a bit, I'm not worried. In many ways the variation can improve the look, and if not, I can clean up later. I then leave this overnight. Starting back in the morning, it's cleanup time. I take makeup sponges and remove the oil wash. I remove the wash on the sections that will be hit by our light sources, leaving the wash alone in any shadows. For any bits that I struggle to get access to, I use an even smaller makeup sponge. It is always worth trying without any white spirits first, then doing this so I don't remove more of the oils than I want. There are now a few steps to finish. With the base to start with, I do another dry brush with Vallejo model colours Saddle Brown. This time only dry brushing the front of the base. Again, think about those light sources. Then to bring back the rocks after this dry brush, I use Vallejo model colour Medium Sea Green and add some slight highlights to the rocks. Now I want to make this guy a bit more creepy. For a lot of the Conquest minis, it's been very hard to paint their eyes, but with this guy it should be doable and maybe even easy. I take my white ink from the white highlights I did before and then paint it into his 4 eye lenses. If it goes around the eye socket, it's okay, but that will just look like the glow with the next step. That next step is to use another ink, this time Vallejo Game Color Green ink. I drop that over the white and leave it to dry. It's got enough transparency so that this will look bright and pop a bit from the mini when dry. It was also super easy and a quick step. To finish the model off, we do a black base rim, add some grass tufts, and then a matte varnish over the entire piece. I was considering doing some gloss varnish over the skin to give it much more of an icky look, but I got this far and decided he was good. Remember, I want to paint an army like this, and so need to save time in some places. With that said, I'm sure you want to see the finished mini, right? Thank you for watching this video. I felt like on this mini we were slowly building our flesh monster together, bringing him out of the forges and ready to stride the battlefield. I hope you enjoyed the process. Stay tuned for more, and to delve deeper into what we're doing here, head over to castleofpaint.com.